Thinking about getting down out there and looking back at the weather, spent about 10 days, not right, not bad.
The 70s fall.
You're welcome, guys.
Made the bill.
Made the same plant.
Those are out of Brigham Young's home.
Huh?
All this is out of artifacts from Brigham Young's home. So
This is out of Jonathan Browning's home.
you see the buttons are made out of.
Oh, really?
Is it on? These buttons were made out of Mississippi clam shells. That's kind of cool, huh?
Bone
Those are
metal.
bones over on the right. Those are some of the food that they ate.
Spare rib.
Spare rib, pork, steak, chicken bones.
See. Rainwater collectors. Where are they on here? Oh, you're on TV.
Oh,
Yes, I was. Come on, baby. This is the 70s hall. As we are at the Blacksmith Shop, and there's a Pioneer girl in the wagon. Ellie! Ellie! Wave at Grandma!
Hey!
Ellie! Hi! What? Well, we are, but I guess I thought they'd stop here since it was this close.
Broke the commandments, they put their head and hands in, locked them all day, same idea. You bring the ox up to here, put his lead rope around the roller and winch him in. Put the stanchions behind his head to hold him, then you put two surcingles, one right here, one right there, and put them on the side rollers, and you roll him up until the weight's off his feet. Then you put ankle ropes on him here and also on his hinds. You lash his hinds up like this and his fronts up like that. Four guys can shoe an ox in 20 minutes and nobody loses their temper. There's a full size of one of these outside if you'd like to look at it. But you notice it's too big and bulky to take to Utah. And so the Saints would build them, use them, and leave them. The first one was at Garden Grove, Iowa. All the way across Iowa, Nebraska, the last one they found was in Lander, Wyoming. Mule shoes. This is the kind you'd put on one of the Budweiser Clydesdales. This was important in early Nauvoo. They left the 1st of February and the ground is frozen. The river is frozen. And if you remember in Bambi when he got out on the ice, how he went down and even somebody couldn't help him up, same thing happens to a horse. So the blacksmith, a sharp cock here, a sharp cock there, a sharp toe cock, and now that horse has got traction no matter where he goes. This is a modern day version. These screw out. If you take them all out, you got a summer shoe. If you put them back in, you got a winter shoe. A horse's hoof grows quite a bit like a person's fingernail. Starts up in the flesh and goes out that way. Sometimes a horse would get a crack in its hoof going up this way, and they could not heal the crack themselves. And this is why. When the horse puts his foot down and puts weight on it, it expands just a teeny bit. And contract, expand, contract. This is part of what pumps blood back up his leg, but also it means that he can't heal the crack himself. So look what the blacksmith does. Bar shoe. Put it on, and now look what happens. It's stable. The cracks can grow out In 60 days, you can cut the crack off, put a new shoe on, and you have reclaimed an expensive horse. You may have heard of orthopedic shoes for people. Horsopedic. Sometimes colts are born pigeon-toed and knock-kneed, and in a horse, that's a serious fault. And so the blacksmith made what's called a trailer, and this is for the right front foot. Notice what happens. The trailer hits the ground first, the foot turns a little bit to the outside before it comes down. Hit, turn, hit, turn. And in 90 days, you can change this to that. On the young horse, you can't on an old one because their bones are already hard, but on young ones, yes. Most folks preferred to have horses on the trail because they're faster traveling and they're fancier to drive. But horses were expensive. Remember, 4,000 we've got to have that summer to go across. And so the price of horses went sky high, 75 bucks. It cost much to buy one horse as a brand new wagon. You could buy an ox for half of that. Not only that, but after you bought the horse, you had to buy a bridle, a collar, and a harness. And that's all made out of leather that costs money you do not have. Look at the knot. I went homemade. Also, when you were on the trail, you turned animals loose at night to feed. Horses are picky. They want fresh green grass or they'll go looking for it. 5 miles in the night. Indians find them before you do. The settlers came up then with handcuffs for them called hobbles. A rope and leather straps like this, and they had to hop or else just pussyfoot. But the Indians found out they could cut hobbles and still steal the horse. Look what the blacksmith did. Iron hobbles on the puzzle principle. And if you don't think that's a puzzle, you ought to try and undo them. The Indians had never seen anything like that. Can you imagine? I'm stealing horses in the middle of the night and it's pitch black, and I find a horse with one of those on, and there's a guy over there 50 yards with a glass waiting to shoot at any sound. I'll probably leave that horse alone. Out west, those are still called Mormon hobbles. I think that's about the end of my story here. Any questions? The word Wainwright means wagon maker. During that year of 1846, when the Saints left, they put 2,000 wagons across the river, and they didn't have to build them all, but they had to build a big share of them. The wagon that they built is this kind. You'll notice that it's smaller than the wagons you usually see in the movies. This is a one wagon, if you remember that. One family, one team of horses, or oxen, and 1 ton of freight. Now, you can put more freight in it than that, but if you do, those narrow wheels sink down in the dirt about that far all the time, and in the first 75 miles, you wear your animals out, and you've either got to throw out or else stay there. They said that on the Oregon Trail, you could follow the first 500 miles of the Oregon Trail by looking out ahead of you at the furniture people had to do this with so that they could keep going. Well, 2-man crosscut. With those 3 things, you could build a cabin anywhere on the trail or after you got to Utah. Some of the other things they took. Now remember, you can't weigh more than 2,000 pounds or you wear your animals out. But they took food that they weren't sure they could find: salt and sugar, beans, flour, garden seeds. This is a beehive. They wanted fruit out in Utah, and you can't make fruit unless you get cross-pollination. So they took their own fruit makers with them, if you will. A scythe to cut hay in the grass, a handsaw, cooking utensils like that old tea kettle. This is a candle mold, iron, a cooking pot. The crockery is for liquids like vinegar and different kinds of oils, perhaps water.
How do they keep the bees in the beehive?
Look at that. Now, and there's no hole. There's no hole in the top part. And so that's why that thing is in a basket with a board underneath it. And you do not let anybody go like that on the trip, huh?
Oh, they took the bees with them?
Yeah. Around here, they'd find somebody in the community that was not afraid of bees. And somebody, how many of you been up to Wilford Woodruff's house yet? Oh, did you see his little bee catcher? Little teeny box about this big. And it's a surefire way to find a swarm of bees out in the woods. Go to Wilford Woodruff's and look at that thing carefully. But anyway, that's all I'm going to tell you. But they would find a swarm of bees in the woods, and the man who's not as scared, or the lady, would go out there and stand by the swarm for a little while until they'd kind of quieted down and spot the queen. And then they reach out and just very carefully scrape the queen onto their wrist. And as soon as they've got the queen, the whole swarm of bees, and they're a walking beehive. And then they'd carefully walk here, and one of their neighbors would lift that up with a stick. He'd put it in and shake the queen off, and the whole swarm. And he's got his bees. So there was a knack to it. Not everybody could catch bees that way. Of all the things on that wagon, the thing that's most important for the trip on the wagon was this ugly little thing right here. That's a tallow pot. That is the only lubricant you have in 1840. Every time you killed an animal or found a dead one, you'd cut off every strip piece of fat that you could find, put it in the tallow pot, and in the warm weather that liquefies in several days. Then the wagon, the wheel assembly that you got, these are made in St. Louis. And you take this boxing, it's inside the wagon wheel like that, and you put it on an iron axle like this, and so when your wheel turns, it's iron on iron. And you've got to keep it greased. You remember seeing women and kids walk alongside the wagon in the movies? Part of the reason they're doing that is to listen for squeaks. As soon as you hear a squeak, you stop, take the wagon hammer, loosen that nut, get the jack pulled out, raise the wheel up, pull it off, take down your tallow pot and you grease all around inside. You grease the axle, put it back on, and in a half hour, you're on your way again. But you've got to do that. There are none of these in Utah. If you ruin one of these or wear it out on the way to Utah, that whole beautiful wagon is worthless. So you take care of it. A wagon, when they build it, they've got the box. And it was interesting about the box because they tried to make it as tight as possible so it was waterproof. And if you look at this one, the people tore up the flooring out of their cabin because it was tongue and groove, you know, and that makes a nice watertight. And so they... Somebody's candle? A little blue candle? Okay, so that they get some flotation across the river. Now, under the front axle here, the front end of the box, look at this. It'll fit under on that front axle, and that's the reason that the box is this far off the top of front axle. It's also the reason that the front wheel is short, 12 spokes, and the hind wheel is much taller. That one you fasten right onto the axle, but this one, you've got to have room under there for the running gear, because this is how you turn it. Of all the things on the wagon, the wheels were probably the single most important. Everything else could be broken and you could still move, but if you break one of those and you're in trouble, you're done. And so they put a lot of work into building them and took good care of them after they had them. When you started to build a wheel, you started with a block of white oak. At Nauvoo weather, it takes 3 years to dry this out. You don't have 3 years in 1846. They found out you could boil it overnight in salt water, then take it up to the brick kiln and bake it for 3 days, and it was dry. I don't know how that works, but it did. Okay, then, you put it on the ground, take this tool, it's called an adze. Hold the block between your foot, and go like this to shape it roughly to the shape of a hub. The nickname for that baby is Shinho. Can you imagine why? If I get just a teeny bit reckless. Okay, after I get my block shaped to the rough shape, then I bring it up here onto this treadle lathe. This treadle lathe works like your grandma's old Singer sewing machine. And then I can use a chisel like this and shape that, and what I'm looking for is something shaped exactly like this hub right here. particular treadle blade has a neat story. This is the one that was in this shop 153 years ago. When the Webbs took off for Utah, they could not stand the thought of leaving this behind, so they took it. Before they got 75 miles into Iowa, they sold it to a blacksmith there for $10. And over the next 120 years, it sold twice more, each time, $10. $10. In the 1960s, the church said, if anybody's got Nauvoo artifacts, we'd like them. If you'll donate them, we'll take them back and put them in Nauvoo in the original setting. They get a phone call from Iowa. Man says, I have the original Webb Brothers Wainwright Shop treadle blade. Would you like it? You can imagine, they're almost jumping through the roof. Will you donate it? No. I've got to have my price. Isn't that a beautiful thing for $10, that old antique? And it really was here, and it really is 153 years old. Okay, when you get the hub cut down, then you take it to the blacksmith, and he hoops it. Here, there, and here, to help it keep from splitting. Once you've got that done, you take a big auger like this, and you start down through making a hole. Once you get the hole run through, you use a mallet and this kind of a chisel, and go down through there, bang, bang, bang. You are trying to get that baby so that the boxing will go down right inside the wheel. When you've got that done, then you're ready to make spoke holes. 1, 2, 3 drill holes, and then you square up the corners. And this is where your spokes go. Okay, then you put this down on the skein. Now the family comes to help. They're trying to save money on this new wagon. The Wainwright gives them 52 pieces like this of hardwood. And they get down here in his schnitzel box and use a draw knife and shape the spokes the way that Wainwright tells them to. And then they bring them to the Wainwright, and he cuts the little shoulders there, cleans that off, and this is the part that's going to go into the hub when we're ready. Then he hammers them all into the hub all the way around, puts a spoke set down inside with the string and the stick, and comes around and marks them all so that they're the same length, cuts them off, and then he uses this little fat pencil sharpener to find the exact center of the spoke. And as soon as he's got that, he takes this one, and you'll notice now the knives are on the face. And when it's done here, all of his spokes have this beautiful end on them. Isn't that a beautiful spoke? That's from a buggy, but it's a nice piece of work. Anyway, now he's got them all cut. Family comes back. He gives them a felloe pattern, F-E-L-L-O-E, felloe. It's the round part here. This, a whole bunch of 2-inch lumber, loans them his fellow saw, and they go home and saw patterns. They come back with 26 of these fellows.
Mom.
The Wainwright drills a hole here and a hole there for spokes, and then you start putting them on. When you get it on all the way around the wheel, the wooden, there's one more thing we've got to do. Right here, you'll notice that the thing will twist sideways a little. So he drills a hole through and puts a little pin in there so that it won't move like this, but stays right straight. And then the wooden part is finished. So I move it over onto the floor skein there. Now I've got to have an iron tire to put on the outside. I take my little 2-foot ruler, which is called a traveler, and I go around like this, measure how long it is. Then I come here on my bar stock, measure it off, and when I cut it off that much too short, on purpose. I bring my new tire down here and stick it in the pinch roller. These things are adjustable up and down. I screw it down and roll it back through, screw them down again, roll it back through, screw it down again, roll it back through. Pretty soon I've got a perfect circle where the ends come right together. Then I take it to the blacksmith, he heats that much white hot. Sprinkles a little flux on, his apprentice holds them together, and bang, bang, bang with the hammer, and he makes a beautiful, strong forge weld. If you want to look at one when you come, get the crack on the hub right there on top, and that is the forge weld. Notice how smooth. Now, my wheel is finished, my tire's finished, but my tire's too small. So, I build a fire on the ground, put my tire in it, and when the tire is red hot, all the way around, two guys with tire tongs pick up that baby, run over here, start one side of it on, bang, 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 and pour water on to keep it from burning. Would you believe that's the only thing that holds that iron tire on that wooden wheel? Is hot, expand, cold, shrink. And it works. Neat idea, I think. Okay, then he runs the tire around to make sure that it runs true, straight like this and doesn't go up and down. If I build a wheel by myself, it'd be one of these kind of wheels, but he can't have that on the wagon. And he straightens it up by driving little wooden wedges against the boxing. When that's finished, they put all four wheels on the wagon, and you put a tire tank under each wheel, and you fill it full of hot linseed oil. And one of the kids stands here and does this all day. And what you're trying to do is to soak the felloes with linseed oil, have it run down the spoke, and soak the hubs, and that's how you weatherproof and waterproof the hubs. It's finished. There's only two things you got to watch out for on the way to Utah. Those of you who've been west, you know that dry in Nauvoo is different than dry in Wyoming and Utah. And so the wood is always kind of drying and shrinking. And as it shrinks, it gets smaller. Also, sometimes when a rock hits against and they're traveling in hard, rocky country, every time a rock hits it hard, it pounds it a little thinner and makes it a little longer. And pretty soon, Dad, that tire's coming off the wheel! And it comes out like this, and then goes out on that side a little bit. And that night, in camp, the blacksmith, there's one blacksmith wagon for every 100 wagons. The blacksmith unloads all of his stuff. You pull the tire, take the rim off, and he heats about that much of it, a bright red color. You run over here to his shrinker with it, put it in there, lock those dogs down, pull this handle, and that baby shrinks together about that far, and you're back in business. Now we go back to a tire fire, the tire tongs, bang, 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 cold water, and tomorrow we're on the road with the outfit. If you were lucky, you only had to do that once, each wheel on the way to Utah. I used to drive a wagon like that from my granddad on the sheep camp, and we had one that came loose. We tried barbed wire, we tried rawhide, we tried drilling a hole through and so forth. We didn't have this kind of an outfit. I wish we had it done, because this is better. Are there questions? And they probably had helpers, but if you consider that for time, a month to build all those hand things and put them together. Imagine what long hours the blacksmiths and the Wainwrights had to work to get everybody ready to cross the river before October. Thank you. Are there other questions?
They went up a little.
This is the women's monuments at Nauvoo Visitor Center. Paid for by the women of the Relief Society, as Ann just mentioned, and you heard.
Hardship for eternity. Neither is a man without the woman, neither is a woman without the man in the Lord. They shall also teach their children to pray and to walk uprightly before the Lord. joyful moments. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord. In her mother's footsteps, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. King with love, seek ye earnestly the best gifts, always remembering for what they are given. Fulfillment. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Carrying her son, my son, keep thy father's commandments and forsake not the law of thy mother.
Get down on it.
Passionate woman, she stretcheth out her hand to the poor. Yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. Sorry. I'm not making fun of her. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she will rejoice in time to come. If anything virtuous, lovely, a good report, or praiseworthy, we take after this day. The 13th article. Just a minute. Woman in prayer, counsel with the Lord in all thy doings, and he will direct thee for good. Woman learning, yea, seek out of the best books words of wisdom. Seek learning, even by study and also by faith.
In more than 125 countries and territories.
All I have to give to the poor, I shall give to this society.
Okay, this is Isaac Chase lot, just north of the, or east of the visitor center in Nauvoo. This is a lot that he had purchased before the Saints were run out of Nauvoo. So.
In its course, you see the pan that kind of moves with the foil that kind of reflects the light and so on. When they came here to restore these facilities, this log cabin was not here. It had long since deteriorated and was gone. All that remained was just the foundation. So they rebuilt this log cabin on the same foundation as the original, and much the same as the original. And we're going to go through that, and we'll
Shut the door, Grandma. That's a good
we can neither sing or dance.
spring, isn't it? Cannonball.
Wow, two butterflies.
That's what he said, huh? Pretty awesome.
Cannonball, huh?
Yep.
Oh,